Hello guys, welcome back to Coding Cafe. So this video is all about JavaScript form validation using JavaScript object concept alongside with add data, delete data and update data functionalities. So let me show to you guys first the project overview. So this is our form. Okay, so if I do not write the ID, username, email address in, if I click on save, then you can see that it will not move to the second field until you write the ID here. So let's say I'm going to write here the ID 1, and then if I left the username field empty and if I click on this save, then it will ask me to write the username here. So let's say my name is Muhammad Ali, and then the same will be for the email and for the address. So now let's write me my email and then my address. So now I will click on this save button, and you can see that the information is stored here inside this table, which is created down after this form with the update and remove data functionalities. Now let's add another record, and then we will perform these two functionalities on this data. So let's say I'm going to add another, and then I will click on this save button, and you can see that the second record is added successfully. So now you have the options to update this data and remove this data. Now let's say I'm going to click on this remove, and the dialog box appear here. It says press OK if you want to delete data. So if you want to delete data, then click on this OK, and if you do not want, then you can simply click on this cancel. Okay, so now I'm going to click on OK, and you can see that the second row is deleted successfully. So only that row will be deleted, that is on which row we click. That is, let's say I click here, then only this row will be deleted if I press the OK button. Okay, and then we have this update data functionality button here. So you can see that when I click on here, then this data will appear here. So here you can simply do changes in this data, and you can update the data. And you can see that here we have this cancel button. So if I click on this cancel button, then the whole form will refresh. So yeah, that's it for this JavaScript form validation alongside with adding the data here inside the table and update and remove functionality. So yeah, let's discuss the code of this mini project. So before we move to the code, let me tell you that the source code will be available in this is basically the source code. The link to this will be available in the description down below. You can simply click on that and it will redirect you to here, and from here you can simply download these three files. The one is the CSS file, the second one the HTML, and the third one is the JavaScript file. Okay, so you can save this as form.css, and you can save this as form.html, and you can save this as form.js file. So yeah, let's move to the code. So first of all, we have our form.html file, and this is our form.css file, and this is our JavaScript file. Okay, where we do code for the validations and for the update, delete and save data. In the head section, you know that we include the form.css file, okay, which is our this CSS file. So we basically include our CSS here in the head section. Okay, so this is the way. I hope you guys know about that. And then we have our body section. Inside the body we have a wrapper, and inside that wrapper we have our form, which is our this form, okay, this student information system. And you can see that inside that form we have the first div is for this heading, which is this one, and then we have this ID, username, email and address. Okay, if I show you, then this one, the first one is for the ID. Okay, this is the ID, and this is the input field, which is this one, and the same is for the username, for the email and for the address. And let me one more thing is that is this one. Okay, this div, inside this div we have used another div which is our this one. So this div is basically when we display the error, which is the text. If I click here, you can see it says id is required. So this div is just for this one. Okay, when we display this error message here below the form, and you can see that whenever I click, I left this form empty, then you can see that this name also turns red, which is our label. Okay, this one. So the same is for the email address and username. And then we have our two buttons. The first one is the save button and the second one is the cancel button. Okay, and you can see here that is here we have our this table. If I refresh this page, you can see that we have just this empty table, where we display basically the data. So we have this data inside this another div which we create after this wrapper. Okay, so after this wrapper we have another table by the, we call it we give it a class by the name my table, and inside that we have this table with the id table and name table, and we have id, name, email address and action, which is our this column where we display basically the remove and update button. And the last thing, which is our JavaScript file, which is this one. Okay, so we have to include this form.js inside the script tag on our form.html at the end above the body. Okay, above the body here you can see that we have this script tag, and inside that we include the source, which is basically our form.js file. So now after that we have our css file. Okay, so you can check it and you will understand it. And then we have our form.js file, which is our JavaScript coding for the form validation and for the save, cancel, update and remove data functionalities. Okay, so first of all we get the id field. First let me tell you that this is our id element, or you can say id field, where we get id from a user. And here this is our username element and then email element, or you can say field. Okay, so these are our fields. Let me clear that this is the field. Okay, the id field, not the value which a user will write here. When we write anything inside this field, then this is basically the value, not this field. So we are basically accessing the field first just to display the error type message. So you can see that here we are just getting the field of id, of username, of email and then address, and we are stored it inside these variables. And after it we get the div for our error, which are these. Okay, id error, name error, email error. So we are basically access that field from there. Okay, and then we store it inside this id error, name error and the address error. And once we get these fields from our form, then you can see we have a add row function which we create here on our form.js. So whenever a user click on this save button, let me show you the HTML file. So you can see that this is our button. So whenever a user click on this save button, then this we here just said that is on click, which means whenever the user click on this save button, we will basically call this function here. Okay, which is return this add row function. So this function will be called there on clicking the save button, and first of all it will validate the id, then the username, then the email and then the address. So if all are validated, that is if they are not null, then we will run the code inside this else statement. So first let me tell you what we are doing here. That is, first of all we are basically, okay, now here you can see that we say id dot value. So here now basically we are getting the value. Okay, here you see that we are just getting the field or element, the id element or id field. not the value. Okay, so now here we are basically checking, that is, if the user write anything inside that field or not. So that's why we wrote here, that is id dot value. So we are getting the value from that field, and we check it here, that is, if this is null, then what we are going to do. So we turn the id dot style dot border. So we basically turns the border red. If I show to you guys, that is this one, we basically turn this border red, and then we say that is id div style dot color equals to red. So id div is basically our this whole thing, which is, if I show you here, which is this one. Okay, so we basically turn this text to red, and after that we say that is id error, which is our error text, and we wrote here that is id is required, and then we move the focus back to this id field in case of any error, if I mean in case of if the user left this field empty. And then we return false, and the same is for the username, for the email, for the address. And then we, inside this else statement, we first create a student object. Okay, so I wrote a comment on every step so that you guys can understand the code easily when you download that code, that source code. So here, first of all, we create a student object, and inside the student object we are getting value, which is our this one, just like we catch the value here from our field, and we here check for if that is, if the value is null, then we are basically turn the border red and do some validations here. Okay, so the same here, we getting the value from our field id dot value, and we store that inside this key. Okay, which is sid, which means student id, and this is the username dot value, we store it inside this sname. The same is for the email and for the address. So we are storing it inside this key, and it is basically a student object, so all we store it inside our student object. So after that, when we create this object and we store the values inside the student object, now is the time to display this id, username, email, address on our here on our table. So here you can see that we create a variable which is table, and we said document.get element by tag name table and this 0th index. Okay, first let me tell you that this thing is optional. Only if you are using one table on your project at runtime. Since you know that we have only one table, so if you remove this table, then this is optional. Okay, there will be no error occur because of that. Okay, this is optional, as I told you. But let's say if you have more than 2 or 3 tables inside your project, if you want to display data at runtime using JavaScript or jQuery, let's say this is as you know that this table is for the student, and let's say if I have another table for the teachers and another table for the transport system of a school or college, then I have to get separately each table like that. Okay, by using their tag name. And let me tell you what is that tag name. This is basically this name which we give here to our table. Okay, so this is basically our this table. So if you do not use this line of code, then it will work in this case. But if you have many tables, then you have to get each table by their tag name, and then you have to do the rest coding, which I will explain now. Because if we do not use this, then here we basically use this table dot insert row. So the JavaScript, in case of one table, the JavaScript will understand that there is only one table, which is this one. Okay, by their tag name, not their name. Okay, I mean this default name, which is table. So it will get the table like that from there. And now in the next thing is, that is, once we get the table, so we need to create a row basically. So at first, when there is no data, you can see that we have only one row, which is the table headers, which is id, name, email, address, and action. So here you can see that first we say that is table.rows.length. So we are basically getting the length of that row. So in this case the length is now 0. Okay, so whenever a user click on save button, then it will increment at the first case you know that it is 0. So in the next case it will be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. I mean when we update the row, when we added further records in our table here. Okay, so we are basically getting the row numbers. So by using this row number, that is, now let's say here it will be 1. Okay, and then we had to add cells to our row. So here we create a variable cell1, and then we say new row dot insert cell 0, which is the id. This one is for the id, username, let me show it to you, id, username, email and address. And the fourth one is for the action, that is this one, which is for the delete and update data. Okay, and then we create our buttons, which is created by, you can simply write here, that is document.createElement button and document.createElement button. So the first one is for the update and the second one is for the delete button. Okay, so this is basically the JavaScript way of creating a button, and we store it inside these two variables. Okay, and then we just give it a background color green for the update button, and for the delete button we give it a background color red, and the text inside that will be white. So since you know that our cells are created, now is the time to add data to that cell, to these cells. So here you can see that by using the inner HTML, as you know that in JavaScript it is used to add data. Okay, so we say cell1 dot inner HTML. So in the first cell we add the this ID, and in the second we add the name. Okay, you can see that student dot ID, as you know that student is our object, and inside that we are adding this one. Okay, which is the key is stored inside this SID. So we say student dot SID. So in this way we are displaying the data, and then we say that is cell5 dot append child. Now append means to add something. Okay, this is the JavaScript syntax for adding buttons and text fields. Okay, so we say append child, which means to add this update button, and then we have to assign some text to that button, which is this update. So we say update button dot inner HTML. So we basically giving it some text, which is this one. Okay, so we basically add this update button to our fifth cell, which is this one, fourth cell, sorry, which is action. So inside this action we add these two buttons, the update button and then the delete button. So in this way we display data here inside inside our table, and then we have delete data and delete button and update button. So first let me tell you the delete button. So first of all, here we declare this row indexed variable. So whenever a user click on the delete button, add event listener, you can see that it basically means that whenever a user click on this delete button, then we have to call this function inside. You can see that is, let's say a user click on this second row. So now we have 0, 1, 2. We have two rows. So this for loop will execute, and as you know that on the second row we clicked, so it will basically on the second row it will move to that row, and then there we basically create a dialog box. First it says the if condition will be if the user click, as you know that two buttons will appear, the OK button and the cancel button. So confirm basically means if the user click on OK button, you know that by using this dot row index we are getting the index of that row. Like let's say I'm going to click here, then you can see that it will basically get the index of that, okay, by using this line of code, which is this dot row index, and it will store it inside this row index variable, which we declare here above, because we have to delete only that row, not all the rows. Okay, so that's why we have to take care of the row number. So then we say table dot delete row, and index. Delete row is basically the built-in function in JavaScript to delete a row from a table. So we say delete row and then we pass that row index number here, and in this way our row is deleted. And in second case we have our cancel button, which is just you pressed cancel. So instead of that, you can simply remove that from there, okay? And instead of that, you can create an alert here. That is, when a user click on cancel button, then we will display that alert. Let's say you can say alert, and then we are going to display this text. So the first if statement is for the OK button and the second one is for the cancel button. So in this way the delete button will work and the row will be deleted. And the second one is the update row. So the same it will work, that is, if a user click on this update button, then we are basically displaying the data here. So you can see that we just said that is this.cell.inner.html, and then we display the ID, the name, the username, the address, and the email. So yeah, that's it for this video, and thumbs up for this video. And if anyone is new to our channel, then please subscribe our channel, and if you have any confusion, let us know in the comment section below and we will definitely help you. See you guys in the next video. Bye for now.